Alright pilots, welcome back! Today we're diving straight into the world of Gundam UC Engage, and this time we're talking about the battlefield that really tests your skills, arena and other PvP modes. If you've ever struggled to climb the ranks, or found yourself wondering which mobile suits actually give you the edge, you're in the right place. Because let's be honest, not every unit is built for the pressure of PvP, and picking the wrong lineup can be the difference between victory and a crushing defeat. In this video, we're breaking down our tier list of the best mobile suits for PvP. These aren't just about raw damage, they're about synergy, team balance, and those game-changing abilities that can completely swing a fight in your favor. By the end, you'll know exactly which units to prioritize, how they fit into your team, and how you can start racking up wins and moving up the ranks. Let's jump right in. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking mobile suits in Gundam UC Engage. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Gundam GP02A, S Gundam, Zeta Gundam, Gaplant, Johnny Ridden, Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility, Penelope, Over.On, Zanuck, and White Rider. Alright, buckle up because now we're diving into the C-tier club of Gundam UC Engage, the machines that tried, fought hard, and, well, they just do not quite keep up with today's meta. They are not useless, but you would not exactly call them the stars of your lineup either. Think of them as the backup dancers in a music video. Fun to watch, but nobody came to see them. Let's start with Gundam GP02A. Once upon a time, this mobile suit was feared for its destructive power. But right now, it just cannot tank well enough to hold the line. Its signature EX skill also takes so long to activate that by the time it fires, the battle might already be over. Imagine showing up to a party after everyone has already gone home. That is the GP02A in today's PvP matches. Next up, the S Gundam. Now this unit really wants to shine with its critical hits. It is like that gambler who keeps hoping for the perfect dice roll. The problem? It does not have a damage cap buff. So yes, it can crit, but the payoff just is not there anymore. Without that ceiling raised, all those flashy crit numbers look more like confetti than real fireworks. Zeta Gundam deserves some respect because it used to be one of the deadliest damage per second monsters in the entire game. Its spammable EX skill ignores defense, and even deals extra defense ignoring damage when the enemy has the unavoidable debuff. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. The newer units have pushed its damage output into just okay territory. It is like an old rock star still doing tours. Still good, but not breaking any records anymore. Now, the Gaplant. Oh boy, this is the definition of a glass cannon. It goes straight for the weakest enemy on the field, with its beam rifle right when the fight starts. That first hit? Deadly. Everything after that? Not so much. If it cannot finish the job instantly, it is basically a sitting duck waiting to be knocked out. It is great for drama, but not for consistency. Johnny Ridden's Gelgoog cannon is a familiar story. Just like the S Gundam, this machine suffers from not having a damage cap increase. That limitation stops it from being the powerhouse it wants to be. Think of it like a race car with a speed limiter. Sure, it looks fast, it sounds fast, but it will never beat the cars without that restriction. Then there is Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility. With its high critical rate and critical attack stats, you would think this mobile suit would be tearing through enemies. But again, no damage cap buff means all that potential just gets stuck in the middle tier. It is like having the sharpest sword, but being told you can only swing it at half power. Penelope used to be the king of tanks, shrugging off heavy attacks with its amazing guard rate. It really was the go-to defensive wall. Unfortunately, the rise of critical hit and assault-oriented units tore that crown away. These days, Penelope only shines against teams that lack those tools. Against the wrong matchup, though, it crumbles faster than you would expect. Over.On is basically the O's more aggressive cousin. It is built for offense, spamming EX skills and restoring its EX gauge whenever it takes damage. The problem is that it does not have the defensive kit necessary to stay alive long enough to matter. So yes, it can throw a lot of punches, but it cannot take many in return. The Zanuck is a straightforward mid-range sniper with solid damage and accuracy. Unlike a lot of other units, it does not depend heavily on its EX skill, which means it is useful even at lower levels of investment. Reliable? Yes. Exceptional? No. It is a good soldier, but in a world full of super soldiers, being good just is not enough to climb higher on the list. Finally, we have the White Rider. This mobile suit is a bit of a strange case. After using its EX skill, it gains the assault status for 30 seconds, which sounds nice. The problem is, it cannot use its EX skill again, and it cannot land critical hits. On top of that, its only buff is a third weapon damage cap increase. Add all of that together, and you end up with a unit that feels awkward and underwhelming. If you really want to deal with guard-oriented enemies, just bring a critical unit instead. They will do the job faster and better. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Hyakushiki, Sinanju Stein, Blue Destiny Unit 1, the O, Gundam ES-8, Titania Zeta Gundam, Hyper Mega Launcher Rick Dom, Thunderbolt Messer Type F-01, New Gundam, Green, Gedlav, Sazabi, Purple, Banshee Norn, NTD, Unicorn Gundam NTD, White Unicorn, Full Armor ZZ Gundam, Victory 2 Buster Gundam, and Goof Custom UR. Perfect. Let's keep that same friendly, witty tone and dive headfirst into the B-tier gang of Gundam UC Engage. These are the mobile suits that sit right in the middle. Not bad, not game-breaking, but they definitely have their little quirks that make them worth talking about. First up, Hyakushiki. If there's one thing this suit knows how to do, it's ruining the day of anyone who thinks absolute evade will save them. Hyakushiki can slap the whole enemy team with unavoidable, and that alone makes it situationally useful. It is not an all-star, but when the enemy is hiding behind cheap tricks, Hyakushiki comes in like a referee yelling, "Nope, you play fair today!" Next is the Sinanju Stein new type version. It has this odd skill where it prioritizes generic mobile suits first. Sometimes that is great, sometimes it is like watching your dog chase the neighbor's cat instead of the mailman that is actually causing the problem. The damage it puts out is not the best compared to top-tier units, but hey, at least it has a personality. Blue Destiny Unit 1 deserves a mention because it has a very specific hobby, beating up new type machine units. That is all it does well. The issue is, something like the Tota's Ritter just does that job way better. Blue Destiny is like showing up to a sword fight with a butter knife. Technically a weapon, but probably not the one you should have brought. Then we have the O. This armored evasion tank loves dodging attacks, and every time it does, it heals and charges its EX gauge. When it works, it is like watching a boxer weave, heal, and punch right back. The problem? Too many units now run around with bullseye, unavoidable, or absurd accuracy. And when that happens, the O suddenly looks a lot less like Muhammad Ali and more like a punching bag. Gundam ES-8 had a moment of glory when the critical hit rework dropped, skyrocketing in value. For a while, it looked like it was here to dominate. But time has not been kind, and in PvP, it slowly got outclassed by suits with overloaded skill sets. These days, ES-8 feels more at home in PvE, where it can still flex a little without the arena bullies smacking it down. Titania is one of those units that looks terrifying on paper. It dodges, it heals, it has melee chops, and whenever it does get hit, it gets absolute evade for a bit. That is like pulling out a safety net at the circus. The problem is that the game has moved on, and Titania does not mesh well with the Gyan-centered strategies. It is like trying to fit into a band that has already chosen its lead singer. Zeta Gundam Hyper Mega Launcher is all about that big, chunky single-target damage. Its X skill smacks enemies with up to 537% of its attack stat and then refills half its EX gauge, so it hits hard and gets ready to hit again faster than most. The catch? You should not use Camille Bidan as its pilot. Sorry, Camille fans. Munamuro or Kincaid now actually pull way better results here. Sometimes the star of the show just does not belong in the driver's seat. Messer Type F-01 comes next, and this one is basically the team's bodyguard. It provokes all enemies into attacking it for the first 8 seconds of battle. That override in target priority is great for saving your squishier teammates. It is not the toughest armored unit out there, but by freeing up your Gyan slot, it lets you run another damage dealer. Think of it as the substitute teacher who actually keeps the class under control. Rick Dom Thunderbolt is like Messer's weaker cousin. It does the same provoke trick, but survives even less. Honestly, it is a discount version. Usable in a pinch, but do not expect it to take much punishment before going down. Now let's talk about New Gundam Green. This one is actually quite handy, since it heals faster than its red counterpart and can dish out solid damage. It buys precious time for allies like Gundam GP02A or Sazabi to ramp up. Around the 20 to 30 second mark, it can really swing momentum in your favor. It is not broken, but when the chips are down, green new can save your bacon. Gedlov is one of those gimmicky machines that somehow works. As long as it stays above 90% HP, it takes 99% less damage, deals 96% more range damage, and moves at lightning speed. Drop below that threshold though, and all those buffs vanish. Luckily, its EX skill lets it heal back up and re-enter God mode. It is a weird balancing act, but if you play it right, Gedlov can be one of the tankiest and most annoying suits to deal with. Sazabi in its non-yellow version trades a bit of survivability for utility. It does not have lifesteal like yellow Sazabi, but it still brings solid damage, crowd control, and the bullseye status effect. It is like yellow Sazabi's slightly less impressive brother. Not as flashy, not as hard to kill, but still good enough that you do not mind having it around. The Banshee Norn new type Destroy mode is another strong attacker that also boosts other green type allies like the O. Once it pops its EX skill, it enters Hyper Awaken mode and gains absolute evade for 10 seconds while dishing out serious pain. The downside is that its value drops if you are running Gyan, since Banshee Norn wants to take damage and draw attention, but Gyan hogs that spotlight. Between the two, most players pick Gyan, leaving poor Banshee Norn on the bench. Unicorn Gundam new type Destroy mode packs high damage and buffs other blue type suits. When it goes Hyper Awaken, it also gains bullseye status, which is a nice touch. The problem is that it gets shredded by counters like Char Zigok and the Zeong because it is a Gundam type and a protagonist unit. It is more useful in PvE than PvP, where those weaknesses get exploited constantly. Full Armor ZZ Gundam is an interesting one because it laughs at EX skill damage. On top of that, it boosts blue type allies' damage, especially when paired with Zeong. With a high guard rate to boot, it is a solid support tank. It is not Penelope level durable, but it can hold its ground and make your blue squad hit harder. Victory 2 Buster Gundam is your go-to when you need to break tanks. Its bombardment-style EX skill deals bonus damage to armored units, and it even comes with a juicy 1 million damage cap increase to its third weapon. Throw in beam damage scaling and some evasion buffs, and you have yourself a reliable tank killer. Finally, Goof Custom. This guy is a bit of a showman. Its EX skill inflicts both unavoidable and stun, and it really shines when it is smacking around stunned targets. On land maps, its evasion and EX recovery go through the roof. Unfortunately, most arena matches happen in space, where Goof Custom just cannot hang. Great in the right setting, disappointing in the wrong one. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Sazabi, the life-sized V Gundam statue, Götterleiten, Zeong Bond Doc ZZGR, RX-78F00HMT, Gundam High Mobility Type, Full Armor Unicorn Gundam NTD, Gundam Plus G Fighter Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility, NTD, New Gundam Double Fin Funnels, Gaymalk, and Kshatriya Repaired. Alright, welcome to the land of the A-tier warriors, the suits that can really carry games if used properly, but also have a few quirks that keep them from hitting true S-tier glory. These machines are like the reliable friends you always want on your team, not flawless, but dangerous enough that nobody should underestimate them. Let's kick it off with the Sazabi, the life-sized V Gundam statue version. Yeah, even the name is massive. This unit is all about self-sustain, beam damage buffs, an 18-second bullseye so it never misses, a 200,000 max damage cap increase, and a ridiculous 66% lifesteal when it deals damage. It basically heals itself while punching you in the face. The catch? Once the damage coming in is too much, it cannot heal through it. So when it goes down hard. Götterleiten is the definition of a snowball machine. It spams EX skills, and if it gets rolling, it can easily top damage charts. The problem is, it is not quite at the level of monsters like Sazabi or Zeong, and it really needs potential level 5 to shine. And let's be honest, not many players have invested that heavily. It's strong, but it is also a luxury pick. Speaking of Zeong, this big guy might be a little old, but it still wrecks house. Its bombardment-type attacks and that infamous Area of Effect X skill can tear teams apart if built correctly. Add in high hit count weapons with beam damage buffs, and suddenly you remember why people used to dread running into Zeong. Sure, it's aged a bit, but an old monster is still a monster. Bond Doc is one of those units that just does everything well. Big damage, good evasion, solid durability, and it can slap unavoidable status around too. It is great against the O, it can shrug off Area of Effect blasts, and because it is not a Gundam type or a protagonist unit, it dodges some of the nastier counters in the game. Think of it as a jack-of-all-trades that only looks slightly worse because of the existence of awakened Magna Martel. Now, ZZGR has a unique party trick. It reflects a third of all beam damage it takes right back at the attacker. Combine that with a 45% max HP heal whenever it uses its EX skill, and you've got a suit that punishes enemies for even daring to touch it. The downside is that once the focus fire is on, it cannot hold the line forever. But hey, at least it goes out making the enemy regret hitting it. The RX-78F00HMT Gundam High Mobility type is all about damage. Built-in critical hits, massive DPS, and performance that feels like an ES-8 supercharged with bombardment traits. Honestly, if you want raw power, this thing delivers, and it does it with style. Think of it as the turbocharged cousin of ES-8 and Johnny Ridden's Gelgoog cannon rolled into one. Full armor unicorn Gundam new type. Destroy mode is basically Zeong's cousin. It dishes out huge AoE damage with its X skill and has plenty of high hit count weapons to match. But here's the kicker. It charges its EX gauge slower, meaning Zeong usually fires first and chunks it down. Oh, and it has a minus 200% critical rate debuff, which makes it sad in ES-8 crit teams. Still, if you do not own ES-8, this unit is a fantastic option. Just make sure it gets to act first before Zeong ruins its day. The Gundam Plus G Fighter is a weird case. On the surface, it is a sniper, but the kit feels more like a versatile generic. With 120% movement speed, 60% evasion, 90% max HP, and solid EX gauge recovery, it looks stacked. The problem is, once its HP dips below 50%, it loses most of those buffs and suffers a 200% penalty to EX skill gain. Keep it healthy though, and it's a rock-solid range damage dealer, especially if you pair it with awakened Pesce Montaigne as a pilot. Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility New Type Destroy Mode is the bane of Psycho Frame type enemies. For the first 18 seconds of battle, it jams all of them, giving itself extra critical attack and accuracy against those poor targets. Its EX skill disables healing, and against healing blocked enemies, it gets even stronger. Sure, it's mostly considered a PvE beast, but don't be fooled. Drop it into Arena against the right matchup, and it can absolutely take over. New Gundam Double Fin Funnels is one of the most utility-packed units in the game. For the first 18 seconds, it has absolute evade and assault status, and then it can bring those effects back with its EX skill. That means it laughs at guard-oriented enemies. The trade-off? It cripples its own critical rate with a negative 200% debuff. No crits for you. Against perfect guard and high guard rate enemies, it might stumble, but for now, it is a powerhouse that can dismantle defenses. Gaymalk is a scaling machine. Every time it uses its EX skill, its damage ramps up until it hits its damage cap consistently. The issue is keeping it alive long enough in PvP to reach that point. In PvE though, give it time and it turns into an unstoppable wrecking ball. It is the definition of a late-game carry suit. Finally, Kshatriya Repaired. Imagine the red Kshatriya, but juiced up for the modern meta. It brings unavoidable, buffs team-wide damage, and deals nasty crit damage without even needing ES-8 support. Offensively, it is everything you want in a DPS support hybrid. But the defense? Yeah, that is the weak point. With AoE damage flying around in every arena match, Kshatriya Repaired can get melted if you don't protect it. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Char Z Gok, Magna Martel, Awaken, Todas Ritter, Rosen Zulu, and Crossbone Gundam X2. Here we are, the S-tier monsters of the arena. These are the mobile suits that dominate fights, tilt matchups in their favor, and make you rethink your entire strategy the moment you see them across the field. If A-tier units are your reliable veterans, S-tier units are the aces who flip the game on their own. Let's break them down one by one. First up is Char's Z Gok, a deceptively simple unit that becomes a nightmare against Gundam-centric teams. Its ability to make allies target Gundam types first, and then deal bonus damage to them, means Char's Z Gok is basically a Gundam hunter. The trade-off, though, is that it's situational. If the enemy is running Zaku types or other oddballs, Z Gok won't shine nearly as bright. Still, in the right matchup, this thing is brutal. Next is Magna Martel, Awaken. And honestly, this suit is just unfair once it drops below 50% HP. Permanent absolute evade, massive accuracy, EX gauge restoration, and sky-high beam damage. It turns into a monster mid-battle. It doesn't just survive, it punishes you for trying to kill it. On top of that, it's one of the strongest single-target debuffers in the game, making its chosen victim take up to 62% more damage from every source. Versatile, tanky, and destructive. This is the full package. Then we've got Todesritter, the crit-based executioner. Its entire design revolves around shredding new type machines, and considering how many top-tier units fall into that category, Todesritter is basically the ultimate counterpick. With devastating crits and a double-hitting EX skill that nukes new types, it deletes some of the most popular arena threats in seconds. If your opponent leans on new type units, Todesritter is the hard answer. Finally, we can't forget Rosen Zulu and Crossbone Gundam X2. Rosen Zulu is a powerhouse raid unit. High crit rate, great defense, and huge damage. Its Bullseye X ensures hits land, crits restore its EX gauge, and it even gets a massive 800,000 damage cap boost. On the other hand, Crossbone X2 is all about survivability and sneaky play. Thanks to stealth, it hides for the first 18 seconds, then flips the script with absolute evade and melee buffs. The only thing holding it back from SS tier is the unavoidable AoE from Purple O. Otherwise, this stealthy assassin would be even scarier. The mobile suits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Guion, Victory 2 Assault Gundam, Theta Plus, Sniper, Sinanju, Generic, Gundam F91, Full Power, Zeta Gundam, Wave Rider, Alex, Chobham Armor, The O, Purple, Methus, UR, Quinn Mantha, and New Gundam HWS. Alright, buckle up, because the S Plus tier is where things get truly wild. These are not just strong mobile suits. These are the monsters that define the meta in Gundam UC Engage. If you're seeing them in the arena, you know you're about to have a tough fight. Let's dive in because every single one of these deserves the spotlight. First up is the Guion, and oh boy, this thing is an absolute lifesaver. By forcing enemies to target armored units for the first 15 seconds, it basically bodyguards your DPS and lets them go ham while the Guion plays decoy. And if you stack it with Zeon Force's allies, that X skill scales like crazy, dropping huge damage bombs right at the start. Put it next to the O Purple, and you've got the most dominant defensive setup in the entire arena right now. It's like locking the enemy in a cage with your damage dealers. Now let's talk about the Victory 2 Assault Gundam, or V2A for short. This mobile suit is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. It heals, it guards, it buffs EX damage resistance for the whole team, and it just gets stronger as the fight drags on. Evasion, beam damage, perfect guard, you name it, V2A's got it. It's already one of the most reliable picks, but its stock could rise even higher once we see more durable armored tanks enter the meta. Imagine V2A babysitting them with healing and buffs. Yeah, that's going to be terrifying. Then comes the Theta Plus, the best sniper unit in the game right now. With a 1.2 million damage cap increase, access to assault, and an EX skill designed to punish blue type and support suits, it's already nasty. But what really makes Theta Plus shine is its ability to check some of Arena's most frustrating bosses, like Purple O and even the Methus. If you're looking for an anti-meta pick that deletes problem units, Theta Plus is your guy. Speaking of raw power, let's look at the Sinanju. The generic version is already an arena terror, built around crits, bullseye for accuracy, and healing every time it lands a crit. Put that together and you've got one of the strongest DPS machines in the game. It's not fancy, it doesn't need tricks, it just crits, heals, and keeps the pressure up until your enemy can't take it anymore. Pure, relentless offense. Moving on to Gundam F91. Full Power. Don't let the name fool you. This isn't just a damage machine. F91 Full Power is a tanky nightmare that taunts all enemies for the first 8 seconds of combat, while rocking permanent absolute evade. Add high evasion and 99% resistance to EX skill damage, and suddenly this thing can live forever against teams without unavoidable or bullseye. If your enemy isn't packing the right tools, F91 Full Power just sits there laughing while wasting their time. Now we've got the Wave Rider Zeta Gundam, and let me tell you, this thing is EX spam central. On its third EX cast, it drops its lethal EX, which hits for a ridiculous 2079% attack, slaps the enemy with unguardable and unavoidable statuses, and boosts its own damage output by 39%. Add in damage cap buffs, gauge recovery, accuracy, evasion, and beam damage, and you're looking at one of the most terrifying EX machines in the game. The fact that it can reliably deal with Purple O just makes it that much scarier. Next up is the Alex, Chobham Armor, which is basically the reflect tank of your nightmares. It reflects 154% of the EX skill damage it takes right back at whoever hit it. Add insane beam and projectile resistance, plus a self-heal of 45% HP, and this suit turns the enemy's strongest moves against them. In Arena, where huge EX nukes are common, Alex can literally make enemies one-shot themselves. That's not just defense, that's comedy gold. And then, the undisputed king, the O Purple. At the time of writing, this is hands down the best mobile suit in the game. Perfect guard, self-healing on guard, and AoE nukes from spammable EX and lethal EX skills. It does everything. Tanking, damage, control. The O Purple is the full package. If you're not prepared to deal with it, it will run over your entire team without breaking a sweat. Arena isn't just about fighting the enemy anymore. It's about surviving the O Purple. But the Methus deserves just as much respect. This unit keeps your entire team alive with massive heals, regeneration every 6 seconds, and resistances to both beam and projectile damage. Blue types get extra healing, extra resistances, and if they drop, Methus brings them back. This thing is the definition of a game-changing support, and it pairs beautifully with bruisers like Queen Mantha. Speaking of which, let's hit Queen Mantha. This big bruiser has HP for days, solid resistances, and constant access to assault, which lets it shred guard and perfect guard units, even the O Purple. By itself it's strong, but when paired with Methus, oh man, you're dealing with a regenerating, resurrecting, non-stop assault machine that refuses to stay down. That's arena hell right there. And last but not least, the new Gundam HWS. This one's more situational, but still deserves S+ placement thanks to its rival unit-killing EX skill. It's not the tank you build your team around, but as a bruiser that can slap around Purple O and other rival units with raw damage, it absolutely earns its place. Think of it as a specialist you bring in to ruin your enemy's day. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.